What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Trinity Road Tape. Today we are with Quadir Copeland and McNeese. Quadir Copeland obviously has followed Will Wade from McNeese to NC State, was the second portal commitment for Wade. And we're going to take a look at an isolation set for him and some interesting stuff that went into this. And what I liked about the way that he was coached, at the way that he was used, I should say, at McNeese, right? So that's him on the ball right there. Played a lot of point guard for McNeese. Don't think he'll play a lot of point guard at NC State. He was point guard basically out of necessity for McNeese. But the point that Copeland helps make, and Wade does a really good job of executing, is basketball doesn't have to be complicated, right? You know, every time down the floor, every series or every offensive possession doesn't have to be a floppy action into a double zoom handoff with a backside twirl flare action. That stuff can work, of course, but really it's about getting players into positions that are advantageous for them, right? Where they have a chance to execute, have a chance to succeed. And sometimes that stuff is complicated, right? If you have a pure shooter and you're running some type of hammer screen, flare screen type actions for them, and then building off of that. But sometimes it's not complicated, right? I think back to Markel Johnson, Omer Yurt 7 pick and roll, right? They just ran basically the same thing repeatedly, and it was unstoppable, right? It doesn't have to always be complicated. It's just a matter of getting guys in the right spots. And Copeland is a great example of that because his good spots and his bad spots are so clearly defined, right? He is really good at putting pressure on the rim, finishing around the rim. He's an excellent passer. He's a terrible shooter, right? It's very clear how he's going to be defended and what positions you want to get him into. And so he becomes a really clear example of that. And, isolation is something that can sometimes be a taboo word to some people. But if you can create an advantage in a matchup, sometimes it's the best thing to do. And we're going to see a set here from McNeese that Lamar is going to defend a certain kind of way, and McNeese is going to react to that by getting into an isolation set that's going to be really effective. So that's what we're going to watch here. So that's Copeland with the basketball. We'll set this up here. You're going to get a 77 ball screen. So 1 2, right? So the ball's there. You're going to have 1 2, right? Double screen. All right. So sometimes you hear that called double drag. Uh, this guard here is going to step over here. Looks like he wants to weak this ball screen, which is similar to icing it. Basically, he's going to step up on top of the screen and force the ball the other way, forcing Copeland to his weak hand. So Copeland right-handed. You see the ball in his right hand right there. And then 20 here for Lamar is going to drop, right? So basically drop coverage off the screen. Pretty deep drop. And you're going to see stuff like that when Copeland's on the ball because he can't shoot, right? So protect the rim, give him space in the high mid-range to three-point area. He's not going to pull up from there. So protect the rim and hope that he will pull up from there, which he's done 93 times in 3 years. So roughly one attempt every 3 games, or every game maybe. I don't know, did the math wrong there. And or he'll pass out of it, right? And that's what you're trying to get. And so that's what you're going to see here. So we'll roll this tape. So you see, he tries to go over 10 steps up. He goes under, rejects the ball screen, was a common thing for Copeland to do. You got this big here in this deep drop spot, protecting the rim, and 10 attempts to recover. Then you get this roll from, this is Christian Shoemate, 24 here. You get this roll from him. And of course, Copeland's a great passer, and he gets his back to the basket there. That's something that he would do a lot on dribble drives, and then he would get into a spin move or a dummy spin move or something like that and finish. So this guy's worried about that, I think, which is why he is all on the ball. And 10 has to protect on this dive here because Copeland will hit that if you give it to him. And so you end up getting a switch. Now, I don't know if Lamar was switching a lot in this game. I don't remember. But you end up getting a switch here. So now the big is on Copeland. So Copeland recognizes this immediately, that he's got a positive matchup, and passes the ball back to the point and returns. And now you're going to get into an isolation set. So you're in kind of a 5-out look here, maybe not quite. So you got one guy over here, Shoemate is over here, This is DJ Richards, who's an elite shooter. This is Joe Charles, who's a pretty good shooter. And then in kind of the slot right here, you've got Quadir Copeland. And they're going to run a pure ISO off of this switch. But one thing is going to happen first. So this is a little tinkering stuff, right? This is a little tinkering stuff to give your guys more opportunities. So you're going to get a cut to the basket and then to the corner from Joe Charles, right? You might call this a shallow cut. Usually a shallow cut would be to like over here behind one player. He's going to cut behind two. But this is not a cut to the basket to try and score. Right? This is a space creation cut. So Charles is going to cut to the basket and then to the corner. And what that's going to do is create what's called a double gap here. So you think about this from a gap perspective. One gap, two gap between your defenders. All right, so now you're going to have this whole area to attack, right? This whole area after he leaves. So it's a lot of space creation, a lot of ability to just go one-on-one. And then you've got DJ Richards, who's a 42% three-point shooter right here. So he's basically going to get face guarded, and they're not going to leave him. So we're going to watch this develop here. And we'll see. So here's your cut from Charles. So there goes Charles. Now look at all the space that Copeland has to attack right here. Charles, remember, good shooter, right? This guy can't just leave him, right? Good shooter and good passer on the ball. So now you got all this space to attack, and then Shoemate's job over here is basically going to be to roam a little bit and get to a spot based on what the help does. So if the help comes hard this way, right, he can get to right here, and Copeland will hit him for a layup, hopefully. And then basically you're playing a two-man game right here. Even though it's in isolation. So he's going to go at him. Shoemate is able to hold that help, so the help kind of stays in the middle, doesn't rotate over to the ball. And it's an easy basket, right? Now, this is a player that can't shoot, but you get into this isolation set, and it's an easy basket for him because he's able to win off the dribble. And even if that big is able to stay between him and the basket, Copeland can get into a little bit of a post move stuff. So this is okay. Like he's able to mitigate the problem with his shooting a little bit because he can get into a spin move or something that he can recreate that advantage. This is terrible defense from 20. We'll watch this play through one more time. I don't know why he's stepping to Copeland on the hesitation move. If Copeland's going to pull up from there, that's a win. But you can watch him right there. He steps to him. Copeland recognizes that immediately, and he explodes. So it's a good, effective hesitation move. It's not something that should have worked. Not good defense. But if Richard or if Charles is still over here, right, and you're willing to leave Charles, like zero is going to be up in here, right, stunting at the basketball, crowding the paint, and yeah, you could probably whoop this ball back over to Charles. Maybe you get a 3-point shot, but instead you got Charles in this corner. You got zero worried enough about him that he is going to follow him over, and then it's just space. And it's simple space creation using little cuts to give your isolation set a better chance to attack more space. And that's it. It's ISO. It's a little variation on ISO. And it's just putting that player in a position where he's at his best, and that's attacking a big one-on-one like that. That big can't guard him on the ball with any amount of ball pressure, and you saw it, right? And so that to me is what I see with Will Wade that I like a lot, right? That's what I like a lot, right? This is just getting a guy in a position to succeed, right? Simple basketball, doesn't have to be complicated. Wade can certainly get complicated, but it doesn't have to be, right? It's who your guys are, what they're good at. Get them in position to do that. If you're gonna get a switch on the screen, Copeland is the guy to attack that. And it's an easy bucket, man. Easy bucket.